Welcome back to Podcast with Lily Abernathy, the show where we dig deep into the podcasting world, sometimes lovingly, but mostly not. Today's episode is a special one, folks. It's part eulogy and entirely dedicated to a man who once roamed the comedy and podcasting scene like a lost puppy. That's right, Lev Fur is dead. We mean it literally. Lev has shuffled off this mortal coil, leaving behind a legacy of, well, we'll get into that. Lev Fur has left us, but his memory lingers like a bad open mic set. So today, we're honouring him the only way we know how, and trust me, if Lev could hear this, he'd be thrilled. Finally, a podcast about him that people will actually listen to. Lev Fur's life began in some unremarkable town that no one really remembers. His childhood was as average as it gets. Participation trophies, awkward school photos, and a burning desire to one day be famous for, well, something. Lev wasn't particularly good at sports, academics, or, well, anything, but he had dreams, big dreams. Unfortunately, like most of Lev's ventures, those dreams didn't quite pan out. Growing up, Lev had the kind of confidence that only comes from having no understanding of your own limitations. His family supported him, mostly out of love, but also out of a kind of resigned acceptance. Sure, Lev, you can be a star, they probably said, while secretly hoping he'd grow out of it. Spoiler, he didn't. Lev's comedy journey began, as many do, at the bottom. Open mic nights, where dreams go to die and comedians go to bomb. Lev was no exception. His early sets were a masterclass in how not to be funny. But Lev was nothing if not persistent. He kept showing up, kept bombing, and somehow managed to convince himself, and a few others, that he was destined for comedy greatness. Spoiler, he wasn't. Lev eventually found a home at Gas Digital Network, where misfits and hopefuls gathered to talk into microphones and pray for downloads. It was here that Lev's career took a slight uptick. With the help of Luis J. Gomez, the self-proclaimed Puerto Rican rattlesnake, Lev found himself rubbing shoulders with some of comedy's edgiest figures. Luis, ever the entrepreneur, saw potential in Lev, or at least saw a guy who could fill airtime. Lev became a regular, showing up on podcasts and trying to carve out his niche in the comedy podcasting world. It was a valiant effort, albeit one that mostly consisted of Lev being the butt of the joke. But in comedy, sometimes being the punchline is better than being forgotten. Now let's talk about the physical transformation of Lev. There was a time when Lev was, dare I say, quite the looker. Handsome, well-groomed, and rocking a jawline that could cut glass. But as the years went on, so did the weight. Lev traded in his sharp features for late-night snacks and an expanding waistline. By the end, Lev wasn't just bombing on stage, he was bombing on the scale too. His once charming looks were replaced by a double chin and a wardrobe of increasingly larger hoodies. It was as if Lev was in a race with himself to see what would grow faster, his podcasting career or his waistline. Spoiler, the waistline won. And then there was the self-documentary, because if there's one thing Lev loved more than bombing on stage, it was talking about himself. The documentary, Lev Fur 20, was Lev's attempt to solidify his legacy. Spoiler, it didn't. The documentary featured Lev wandering around New York City, reflecting on his struggles and triumphs. The struggles, finding decent Wi-Fi at coffee shops. The triumphs, managing to stay awake through his own podcast recordings. It was an exercise in self-indulgence, complete with slow-motion shots of Lev gazing thoughtfully into the distance, as if he was pondering the meaning of life. Spoiler, he wasn't.
But the thing is, I wonder if he wants to be a comedian or if comedy is an avenue to just
We're going to find out
Bieber.
on today's show.
I mean, if you look at it's complicated. It's him with like this frosty tipped hair and is looks like a pop star.
If I had those eyes,
It's
I don't
crazy.
know that I would.
He's a good looking guy, but
very handsome.
The actual picture of him
Can I tell you
is
the
a
problem,
pop
Tim?
star's album.
And this is the truth, Lev. You used to be a fat kid, right?
Yeah, I used to weigh 300.
We're going to do this way. Play some of this movie because I don't. We got to talk about this. This is so good. All right, this is actually better than I thought it was going to be already.
No, the movie's great.
Good.
When I was 17, my dad saw me
Look at
do
the way he's
stand-up
dressed.
for the first time. Only time to see me do stand-up. And he watched me, and after my set,
imagine Chris
he
Brown's
said,
dick looks like that.
Yeah, I don't see anything that makes me think you're going to be good at this. And
He looks like a failed Vine star.
then I moved to New York, man. I worked really fucking hard for 2.5 years and gave him my all, and I'm starting to think he was right.
Okay, so stop that right there. So at the end, he does this self-deprecating, but that's not what that's about.
Nope, it's about looking cool.
2.5 years of working hard in New York, and he looks cool. He's got his fucking weird jacket.
Even his own dad.
Even his dad was like, "You suck."
Even his own dad.
His dad knew.
Yeah, but he knows he's supposed to be self-deprecating.
His dad was
so
like,
the next
you'll make shitty documentary in 3 years. Watch what you will make. You will bring shame. Instead of just getting funny, putting your head down.
Lev Leon.
Lev Leon.
The only thing that is less good in your comedy is your documentary making
Lev
skills.
Leon, you stupid fuck. I would rather watch Who Took Johnny than this stupid self-aggrandizing documentary about an open micer, Lev Leon.
Dude,
It is so stupid. No, but you're sitting there looking like a Vine star.
And you're poignant. You're doing this poignant thing. Look,
it's like genuine.
Can I look?
Dude, to me, like the reason I put that in because that's a true story. My dad's only seen me do comedy once, and he was like, "You shouldn't do this," and that was it. And after that, and I was like, "Okay, that's and I told people that story, and I was like, "Is that? I think that's really funny."
Yeah.
And they said that's not funny, and so we just recorded it, and that was it. And then I was like, "Why don't we just start it that way?"
As the years went on, Lev's career began to fizzle. His social media posts grew more desperate, his podcast episodes more erratic. Even Luis J. Gomez, ever the opportunist, seemed to lose interest in Lev's potential. It was as if Lev's career had been put on life support, and the plug was slowly being pulled. And then the news broke. Lev Fur, dead at... Well, we won't get into specifics. The cause of death? Irrelevance. Okay, fine. It was something more mundane, but let's not let facts get in the way of a good story. Lev's passing was met with a mix of shock, indifference, and, for some, relief. The comedy world had lost a figure who was as much a part of the scene as the broken mic stands and sticky floors. But in all seriousness, Lev's death is a reminder of how fleeting life and comedy can be. 1 minute, you're riffing on a podcast. The next, you're the subject of one. Lev may be gone, but his memory will live on in the hearts of those who loved him, tolerated him, and occasionally laughed at him. Lev's legacy is a complicated one. He wasn't the funniest comedian, the sharpest podcaster, or the most insightful documentarian. But he was Lev, and that's something, isn't it? His life was a testament to persistence, even in the face of overwhelming mediocrity. Lev taught us that it's okay to fail, as long as you do it with a microphone in hand and a camera rolling. Lev, wherever you are, hopefully hosting a celestial open mic, you'll be missed. Not necessarily for your comedy, but for the sheer audacity you brought to everything you did. Rest in peace. You've earned it, kind of. That's it for today's episode of Podcast with Lily Abernathy. Lev Fur may be gone, but the stories, the laughs, and the cringes he left behind will linger. Thanks for joining me on this journey through the life, career, and ultimate demise of one of podcasting's most persistent voices. Make sure to follow us at Podcast the Pod on social media. This week's outro is a clip from the new Corn-Fed with Dalton Pruitt Patreon, starring Pandatron, the man who vanquished Broke Degen, Bamboo Fed. Go subscribe. See you later, Space Cowboys.
Hey, man.
I saw 2 homosexual guys on TikTok talk about how you want to do, instead of rather try to avoid overhead lighting as much as you can and do like atmospheric lighting or whatever. Just like light, instead of lights that are on the ceiling,
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Lights that would either be like from underneath or decorated.
It's an if you start to care about it, it's a fucking investment.
If you start to care about it, you're gay.
Yeah,
dude. I just turn on bright fucking fluorescence.
But you live in a Target and shit, or like in a fucking Walmart.
Yeah, my bed.
I haven't had many Asian eggplant dishes.
If you go to like a Chinese restaurant,
right?
Like in a Chinatown, like in
New
York,
the Cokes come pre-pissed.
Some yes, they have Coca-Cola.
They order it like McDonald's. They got their own little tap with
they have PP Coke on the fountain. It's actually the freestyle machine now.
You guys have Diet Coke? No, just PP.
Just